Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. My name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the Five Talents Podcast. I'm super excited. I have an amazing guest that you guys are going to learn a ton from. I first heard him on, I think it was Whitney Sewell's podcast. Then I heard him again. A couple of different times, and have been following him on LinkedIn and just learning a ton of really good information from him. That's very timely, very pertinent to my world. So I thought he would be an amazing person to interview. Yakov, how's it going, sir?
Hey there. Thank you for having me.
And make sure I'm pronouncing this right. Yakov Smart.
You got it.
All right. He's the man. So I brought Yakov on because he is one of those experts, one of those individuals that has been able to leverage social media, social marketing, especially in today's, post-COVID time that we're living in, when it's hard to get into a group or a meeting or an in-person or a large, center mass of individuals where we can build and start establishing trust for raising capital specifically, which, if you're in this commercial real estate and syndication world, you realize that, man, that's a lot of what we do as operators and partners. And if you're a passive investor, I want you to really, not tune out just because we're talking about raising capital. If you're a passive investor, there's going to be some nuggets that we're going to discuss that you should be looking for in your syndicator, your operator, their business, the way they, other syndicators are positioning themselves. So I think it's going to be a really good show all the way around. I'm just super excited. So, Mr. Yakov, really to give your background, I'm going to let you explain a little bit more about yourself, but as opposed to, the high level, kind of explain, what you do. But man, you shared stages with some on Bravo's hit TV show, Samantha Di Bianchi. You've done $1 million listings. You've been a guest on numerous media outlets. And you have that presence about you on the media that you're the individual I need to talk to about capital raising on LinkedIn. Why don't you tell us a little bit of your background and just who you are, and then what you do in your own words, and that we'll go from there, man.
Definitely. So my background, I'm someone who was fortunate enough to sort of grow up in the world of social media. So, I got my start on social media when I was in 8th grade on something called MySpace. Okay. And your listeners probably remember MySpace. That was like the OG of social media. And so I've pretty much grown up with social media, MySpace, Facebook, and the idea that you can build relationships online. And so
I think Tom was my first social media friend for the MySpace part. He was like everyone's first friend, right? Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Shirt on. I remember that ominous kind of picture.
Yeah, man.
But the dude, speaking of raising capital, the dude did well. I heard he's an investor in some companies now. But anyway, back to my background. So I grew up in the Atlanta area. I grew up, kind of understanding social media. And then from an early age, I always knew that I wanted to have my own business. It was just not even a question. I had this desire within me. And I was fascinated by this idea of marketing and behavior and communicating with people, and how I communicated and showed up in the world. And I've been on LinkedIn. The first reason that I got on LinkedIn was for the traditional reason, which a lot of your listeners have probably heard. I remember being a college, excuse me, being a college student and being told that LinkedIn was an important place to be to have your resume. So that was my first context for understanding the platform. But I quickly realized I could do so much more with it. So after I graduated school, I lived in Vegas for a few years. And upon moving there, I used LinkedIn to reach out to people who I didn't know. And I was coming from, all the way in the Southeast in the Atlanta area to build key relationships in Vegas, and to the point where I was working a job selling software. And it was my job to sell the software B2B, so business to business. And I was cold calling on small business owners, trying to get them to book a meeting and sell them some software. And at the time, they had no idea what the software was. They had no idea who I was, and they had no idea why they should care. So it was an uphill battle, to say the least. And I know some of your listeners have probably cold called and knocked doors. And hey, it certainly builds character, but in this day and age, usually not the best way to go, especially for something like raising capital, as you probably know.
Yeah, I started to pause you. I did in-home presentations, and I sold Cutco knives, when I was in college, and I didn't have to knock on doors, but just going to somebody's house and then asking for referrals and kind of doing it again. That's kind of how I first started. Quickly into another position where you're picking up the phone, and it's pretty difficult over the phone to cold call somebody. And then as I transitioned in my sales career, because I've been a sales guy for years, since probably high school, right? Afterwards, I never really had any success talking or pinging somebody cold from like LinkedIn or Facebook, and nor did I like the sales pitch to me, because it was never effective. So like that was like, it just, I didn't ever believe, no way, there's no way I can raise capital on LinkedIn or Facebook. And then to circle off one more thing, I use LinkedIn the same way, as a resume, and that's about it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people too. So when I first had the idea to use LinkedIn for prospecting, I was still selling software. I kind of did it out of desperation because I hated cold calling so much. And I started to gain some momentum very, very quickly. And inadvertently, I stumbled upon kind of a new way of using LinkedIn. And as I was out in Vegas meeting other business owners, people asked me what it is that I was doing on LinkedIn to generate leads. And I started taking on clients and turning it into a business. And before I knew it, I was in business full time. I was working with a number of business owners in Vegas and then ultimately across the country. And I authored the book called Disrupting LinkedIn, back before a lot of people even had the thought of using LinkedIn for prospecting.
What year was this?
This was, I think, in 2016. That's when the book was published.
Gotcha. So you were working on it, years or a year at least, or some period of time beforehand, practicing your skill, honing it, and then it took you some time to write it. When did you start using LinkedIn, for yourself to kind of understand it?
Well, when I was selling software, that's when I started, and then started using it for my business too. And then,
But what year was that? Sorry.
Oh, it's when I first, I think I've been on LinkedIn personally since 2014.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Or 2013 even. Yeah, so I've been on there for a while. So yeah, I was working with clients across a number of businesses, and I was also asked to do a lot of speaking, seminars, webinars, workshops. I was fortunate to travel the country and to work as a trusted advisor in a number of different fields, and to be paid while doing it. And then recently, I had a few people in the real estate syndication space, and even in the capital raising arena, a little while ago, start reaching out to me and saying, I've heard your stuff because you're one of the top guys on this subject matter. Can this be used to find investors? And we're talking about people who are mega high net worth individuals. I mean, I remember one of my first clients in this space, they were looking for angel investors who sometimes were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billionaires, right? And if they're going to be on any social media, they're going to be on LinkedIn. And I was confident that it could work for attracting those people. It just would take a matter of the right messaging and the right approach. So After kind of having that realization of starting to work with people in the capital raising space, I saw what a big opportunity this was. I saw, how much value there was in using LinkedIn to find investors. And I also understood how different it was than selling something like, software or accounting services or stuff like that. It's just
Yeah.
a different animal. So these days, my methodology is specifically designed to attract those high net worth individuals, build trust, build relationships, so they can ultimately invest with you and you have the capital that you're looking for to grow and scale your business. And the way that we work with people primarily is through a proprietary on-demand training platform where we give them the tools, strategies, scripts, all the nuts and bolts of what to say and what to do on LinkedIn to find those investors and build those key relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense because, well, your training program, that's awesome. So anybody interested in that, check that out, because I think it's going to provide you a lot of value. But when we're talking about building trust and a relationship, contrary to, I think, what a lot of maybe my friends believe or some other new general partners, they think that I'm looking for anybody to take money from anywhere. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm really specific on the investors that I want to work with because I want them to have alignment of vision. I want them to have the same kind of risk profile that I'm, looking into. I want to know, believe and trust that they're going to be a good partner for me in our deals, because the investors that I take, they're going to be with me for on one deal 3, 4, 5 years, probably more in some cases if I underwrite them a little bit longer. And so, man, I want to find people that I know, like, and trust, as well as investors are looking for the flip side. And it's a little bit more difficult to do that online, social media. You're like, how do I do that, right? So that's pretty cool that you've developed that platform and created that. So let me dig into some specific questions, because I think these are going to help. First of all, why use LinkedIn as opposed to Facebook? Probably could do some kind of variation on Facebook, but why LinkedIn? What's the value there? And I kind of know the answer. I want you to answer because I think you have all the data points for it.
Well, to put it in simple terms, it's the quality of the audience. It's superior than any other platform, and you can reach people directly, but getting past the gatekeeper right on their mobile device. I'll give you some stats and the data. So right now, there's just over 700 million users on LinkedIn right now. That's people from all over the world. Average household income on LinkedIn is $115,000. That's the average household income. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of what type of investor you're looking for, whether it's doctors, attorneys, engineers, CEOs, venture capitalists, institutional investors, military officers, all these different types of potential investors that you're looking for, you can build hyper-targeted list of these accredited investors or the types of investors that you're looking for on LinkedIn, literally within a matter of minutes, without having to spend thousands of dollars buying a list. And you can reach these people directly, and using automation, using different tools, you can start to really do that at scale. So it gives you the opportunity to get hyper specific in your targeting. And also LinkedIn is still very much a gold mine for building key investor relationships. I mean, I still think we're very early in the game with understanding how LinkedIn has changed. And very few people are using LinkedIn to its fullest potential for finding investors and building those investor relationships. And so many people are doing it wrong and messing up that you can really create enough contrast in your approach to make a difference and make things even easier for you. Some other differences with LinkedIn and Facebook, for example, is Facebook, you need a big ad budget to generate investor leads. There's no other way around it. If you don't have thousands of dollars to spend a month with testing and all those different things, it takes a lot to get set up. It can be done, but it's much more of an uphill battle. And Facebook has got to approve your messaging. It's got to approve your ad. Hear all sorts of horror stories of people's ads just getting shut down or their messaging getting rejected because some bot on Facebook flagged it for some weird reason. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, you have much more leeway. You can say whatever you want because it feels like a direct conversation, right? It's direct relationship building. It's a lot more intimate than someone just seeing an ad and glossing over it, okay? The LinkedIn methodology that I teach for finding investors is all about an organic approach, meaning it requires zero additional ad spend. okay? Which is so huge. It's so critical, especially for those people just starting out, wanting to find, their first group of deal-ready investors, okay?
Yeah.
Some other key things with LinkedIn, once you set it up, it's 90% automated, right? And you can be much more targeted than even on Facebook, right? I mean, we talk about something in our programs and even our webinars called X Factor list building. And you alluded to it, Abel, but the way that I would describe it is you're looking for an overlap of three things on LinkedIn when you go and you build your list, okay? Number one is that ideal income range, right? You want people who are generally high income earners, already six-figure income earners, and you can do that based on their occupation, where they live, although that type of data. You can be very precise and accurate at super high income earning individuals. The next thing is net worth, right? Now, there's not a filter on LinkedIn to show people's net worth. That doesn't exist. However, if you find those high income individuals and you can pinpoint their longevity, so let's say someone's been in their career for 30 years and they've been a CEO for 25 and they live in the Bay Area, do you think they're a high net worth individual, right? Of course.
Probably made a little bit of coin through the years. And
absolutely.
So live in a nice area.
Pinpointing those types of individuals, and you can target by as precisely as zip code, for example. It really gets specific. Wow. And the third piece is what you mentioned. It's that ideal mindset, man. So it's that openness to learning, it's that growth mindset, but also someone who's open to learning about alternative investments, someone who's open to taking a certain amount of risk, or really wanting more upside, someone who has ambitious goals for their financial futures and legacies. So you want a combination of those three things when you go out and you build your list of prospective investors that you're going to target on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay. That makes perfect sense. And once you defined, hey, those are my three target areas, potentially, like myself, I'm a former tech guy. So one of the things I learned, I think through this process was, okay, who am I actually speaking to? And I think I have a tech kind of background. That's probably where I'm at. And I used to be a, senior executive sales leader. So there's probably a lot of, VPs, directors, C levels, et cetera, in the C space in tech that I can probably, have a good conversation with and enjoy our tech background. But they've got to have the right mindset. They want to, be alignment of goals, alignment of vision. So I think, I'm starting to shape that myself, right? But for others, maybe you're in the military, like you said, or maybe they're, whatever they are, but you're targeting those. How do you actually make a list? How do you build that list? Like, what are the tactical steps? Because, as I see LinkedIn, I mean, I can connect with a little bit of data, and I can see my first, second, third connection, city. That, how do I actually do that? Like, give me tactical steps here that I can follow.
So there's a few different ways to do it. There's 5 ways within the scope of LinkedIn to build list of potential investors. Okay, and when we talk about list building here, we're talking about list of people to potentially communicate with. Okay, we're not talking about people who are deal ready necessarily yet, right? And I'll explain
just even starting a conversation and saying hello. I'm here, right?
Exactly. Right. So the first way is the free search, quite literally going within the LinkedIn search box, and you can search for free by a few general areas. The second way is importing a list. So let's say you've purchased a list, or you've got a list of accredited investors from somewhere that you've obtained. You can actually upload it into LinkedIn and connect with those people. Okay, there's a way to upload a CSV. Third way is you can search by LinkedIn groups. There's all sorts of different groups by interest and affinities on LinkedIn. You can do a search for those. Fourth way is LinkedIn advertising, which is its paid traffic place, meaning, there is an advertising platform. For most people, it doesn't make any sense, but it does exist. And there are some different ways to target and build audiences. My favorite way, though, is using LinkedIn Premium. So using the LinkedIn Sales Navigator account. What's really neat about LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it was originally created for B2B type of salespeople, right? And what we've done in this unique methodology is we've shown people how to use this and it quite literally is the most precise targeting available on any social media anywhere, right? And I market and advertise on a few different platforms. There is nothing that even comes close. And what this allows you to do, there's about 15 to 20 different filters you can use to build that hyper targeted list of individuals using the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So those are the 5 ways.
Okay, got it. It was Sales Navigator that I grew up kind of using in the tech job. I don't think I ever used it correctly in my B2B sales. I never really had a ton of sales from that directly. I ended up picking up the phone. But then now that COVID time this year, I've spent a lot of time, searching and looking for, people we want to connect with. Right. And so the Sales Navigator, so I don't know, $500 or $600 a year or something like that. It's nominal when you think about the reach you're going to be able to get with the right targeted people. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. So you've started building your list. You've identified maybe your ideal avatar, your right, target. Who do you resonate with? Who do you want to reach? And you started building the list. I can pull that list and there's like 5,000 people. How in the world is Abel Pacheco, without a super crazy sales staff, going to go reach out to like 5,000 people, build trust, establish a relationship, build trust, and then have conversations with everybody? How does that happen?
So it starts and ends with your messaging, with what to say, right? You want your profile to be optimized in a way where, because essentially what we're doing here is we're driving eyeballs, we're reaching more people, right? So if you were to have, and this is a question for people to ask themselves listening too, if I told you that tomorrow 500 high net worth individuals, your potential investors, are going to go look at your LinkedIn profile, would it build trust? Would it impress them? Would it get them to want to know more? Or would they just look at it and gloss over a resume, right? In most cases, it's the second of those, right? So you want to make sure your messaging is optimized to accelerate trust, and you want your messaging to be optimized in a way so that potential investors know what's in it for them, right? You've got a split second online to catch people's attention, whether it's on your profile, direct messaging, even in content you post. So there's 3 ways on LinkedIn to accelerate trust. There's 3 key areas of messaging, okay? The first one is the messaging on your LinkedIn profile, okay? Because your profile is so much more than a resume. It's a marketing asset. It's a piece that, can build that trust and get that investor interested in wanting to potentially know more, okay? You've got content that you could be posting on LinkedIn, which a lot of people don't quite understand the way LinkedIn content works. They think they have to post 5 times a day to get anywhere. It couldn't be further from the truth, okay? So just like Facebook, there's a news feed, so you can build trust using content. And then the most precise, direct, and exact way is via direct messaging. So the flow of things, and there's a couple different automation softwares out there that do 90% of this for you, which is awesome. And I recommend it for everyone because you don't have the time to be one-on-one pressing the buttons every day. It's just not the highest and best use of your time, right? So very first step is you build a hyper-targeted list. Assuming you've put together a profile that is top notch, where the messaging is, I call it irresistible, because irresistible is the right word to potential investors when it comes to building trust, you can then go out and start the relationship building process, right? And there's some best practices for a list size. Usually you want to have between 1,500 and about 2,000 per list, okay? So let's say you've got your list of 2,000 people. You're ready, you're excited, you're ready to start building those relationships and building your investor list. what do you do next? Okay, the first thing, and you want to think of it as a flow chart, right? You want to think of it as a series of yeses. Okay, the very first thing is, the very first yes is, are they going to connect with you on LinkedIn? So on LinkedIn right now, there's 3 types of connections. There's first degree connections. So Abel, if you and I connect on LinkedIn, it's like being friends on Facebook, where we become first degree connections. There's second degree connections, where you have at least one mutual connection with someone. So right now, Abel, if you and I are connected, everyone in your LinkedIn network is my second degree connection, and vice versa. Okay.
And let me pause you too. For any passive investor that's listening right now, and I can kind of feel you starting to tune out. Don't and not that's not because of Yakov, but because we're literally talking about targeting you listening. What I want you to realize, though, on the flip side of this, is that whatever you're doing, whatever role, whatever job, whatever industry you're in today, all of this information will absolutely help you in any kind of role, any kind of job, any kind of targeted focus that you have to go reach and meet people during COVID time. So, just to interrupt, and I apologize, Yakov, we built a list, we're coming back and we're saying, hey, I want to get to a series of yeses. And your time is valuable. If you're the high net worth, individual, you're that investor that we're trying to target. We're not suggesting you're going to go personally touch 1,500, 2,000 people. Yakov is, kind of getting into it. So I apologize for throwing off your flow. I just really wanted to highlight this because it's valuable for the passive investors and the general partners. But go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, so the very first piece is connecting with someone, right? So you can send them a connection request. There's different automation software that does it for you. So you can send out, let's say 100 a day, okay, once you're up and running. And people have a chance once they get a connection request from you, and you can even add a personalized note there. Once people get a connection request from you, they can be part of your LinkedIn network. What a lot of people will do is go and they'll look at your LinkedIn profile first, especially if they're going to be discerning, right? So you want your profile, again, to not seem like a big sales pitch. That's not what we're talking about, to build trust, credibility, and value, okay? So assuming you connect with that person, okay, you then want to put them through a series of multi-step messages, okay? And these multi-step messages aren't designed to throw a ton of information at someone. They're not designed to be vomit messages that pitch a bunch of stuff, okay? No one likes that. What they're designed to do is to build value and to give value. And there's a few different ways. There's different types of messaging structures, and there's a lot of nuance here. But there's a few different ways you can build value through direct messenger on LinkedIn. Okay. The first way is sharing content directly, right? So sharing something that builds value and builds trust with the person directly. Okay. The next piece is what we call problem or challenge awareness, right? So pinpointing a conversation that's already happening in their mind, a challenge they're already facing, and raising awareness of that challenge and seeing if it's something they can resonate with. That shows a lot of empathy and it gets people to pay attention, okay? And the third way is asking a question, okay? We call them magic questions. They're questions that open the door to a conversation. And your messaging, you want to give people a chance to either self-select or deselect, okay? You want people, the right investor, the person who has that right mindset, you want to give them a chance to engage with your messaging, and giving value is the way to do that. And if someone doesn't have the right mindset or isn't the right person, if they're not interested, great. You're doing this at volume, you're doing this at scale. It doesn't matter, because the only thing that manually that you have to spend your time on, once this automation is up and running, once you have this type of system set up for finding investors, the only thing that requires manual time is, let's say someone starts asking questions about the types of deals you do, or wants to know more information, or starts engaging.
Which are the questions I want anyways. Those are the ones I want to answer.
Exactly.
And excited to get into.
And are interested.
Yep.
So that's the only manual piece. Everything else, you can automate the multi-step sequence of messaging. I call it a LinkedIn Messenger funnel. And there's a consistent stream of follow-up. So all the follow-up, we talk about the importance of follow-up. All that is done for you by automation. And the key thing is, and this is important, is to make it look like it's not automated. Okay. So
I've
that's the key thing.
I've had some number of instant messages come in, and they're doing it wrong. You can absolutely tell they're not following Yakov's advice. They're hitting me with a long sales pitch, and I kind of respond with something or anything. And my filter question is: are you a real estate investor, or are you an aspiring one? And they come back with a next automated message, which is a longer sales pitch. I go, hey man, you didn't even look at my question. And then I can see somebody live go, oh, I apologize, I missed it. But I can tell they're using some kind of automation, and we're kind of filtering them out myself on the recipient end, which looks really poor. You don't want to do that. And you're following Yakov's advice, a series of yeses, a little bit of information, you're giving value. Give us, what do you mean by that? Give us some examples of this flow.
So I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question. Do you mean
Like, what would the literal messages be? Like, hey, my name's Abel, nice to meet you. Well, the like first message, second message, and a series of yeses. Like, what would they be?
so I don't think there's a one size fits all necessarily to what to say in the messaging. You want it to, because here's the thing, right? If you're talking to a tech sales executive,
Yeah.
you're going to be talking to them very differently than, let's say, a college professor at Yale, right?
100%. Okay, I'm
The
with you.
flow and the tone and there's going to be differences. However, you want to address points of commonality, right? So if you both live in San Antonio, you want to address that in the message. If you both served in the military, you want to address that in the message, right? It creates those instant points of trust. Wait a minute, this person's just like me. They acknowledge our similarities. Okay, right? It's not just some dude on the internet trying to sell me some stuff, right?
And you did just create a list of tech professionals, of military background, of San Antonio people, right? So it's easier for me to say, hey, I'm in San Antonio also. I'm a former tech exec also, right? Okay, I'm following.
Yeah, and that's important too, because remember the thing about making it not seem automated? It's super
Yes.
personalized. They're just on that targeted list.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So let's say after you've connected, let's say, one flow could be you go ahead and you share a piece of content. Okay. You share a piece of content like a webinar or like an article, or, let's say Warren Buffett said that multifamily syndications are going to be the best investment in the 2020s, right? Let's say
Come on,
there's
Warren.
an article that says that, right?
Yeah.
You could share that type of piece of information with them and again, you're not pitching anything. You're not requesting a meeting. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Next step is you can pinpoint a challenge, based on where they're currently at, a challenge they may be facing, right? Or what you've noticed when you've talked to people like them about real estate or about the current market or about, whatever your subject matter is there, right? Or about apartments, right? You can be as specific as you want here, but if you really want to pinpoint what they're already thinking, that creates this subliminal trust that just makes it grow even more. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You could also, and then if your next message, and again, when they respond, and we call them in our programs the 8 buckets, right? So there's 8 types of responses that you could get on LinkedIn, right? So when they respond and they become a lead, when they raise their hand, they're like, oh, tell me more. Or, oh, well, what's the minimum investment required to invest with you? When they start asking questions, it's important to acknowledge so that they're seen, and it's important to transition, like, hey, I could, it depends. I mean, and making it clear that you want to learn more about them and their goals and actually build the relationship. And that's when you can invite them to a meeting, right?
Yeah. That's the goal. That's the goal anyways. I want to have a real conversation with the real person, get them on the phone, they start to know, like, and trust me, maybe send them some of my content, for ongoing. And then, if I'm talking today, it's, we're in October 2020, right? All the deals I have are full. I don't have anything going on till January or February. So I've got to build some kind of relationship with them from now till then. And then we're talking and they like me, I like them. We're going to go do a deal together, right? We're going to build a relationship. But the LinkedIn is not to build a specific, like an ongoing relationship. It's just to open the door to one. and you have to provide enough value. You can't be a sales, pitch, individual. No one's they're gonna delete you immediately, and you're just trying to open up a conversation, which is, just like if I was in person at a real estate conference or seminar, I got to go up and shake someone's hand. The way you use LinkedIn is like it's a really good internet handshake. Is kind of how I've always viewed, what you're doing and your expertise. So I won't pause you here because there's probably a ton more really good nuggets. And if our general partners that want to raise more capital, they're going to go reach out to you and pick up your educational series and look into you. And that's awesome for this, for wrapping up in the next few minutes, right? Once I've done that, I've had that internet handshake. You mentioned automation, right? The automation, basically you code it or whatever to stop. There's no more ongoing messages at some point, or maybe whatever you're trying to figure out how to have a real conversation with them and lead into this system. What are those? What are those tools like? The first time I heard about it was on your show, in another interview. Explain the tool, what it is, how to do it, so why people don't believe that they have to do this 2,000 times to 2,000 different people. Like what is this tool, this automation?
So there's some different ones available, depending on a person's needs, depending on kind of where they're at. Again, it's not a one size fits all. I'm not going to go into specific names of tools on podcasts just because there's also listed best practices, and I don't want someone getting a certain tool and then completely butchering it and then getting kicked off LinkedIn and saying, well, Abel and Yakov, they told me to do this. How dare they? They've ruined all my dreams of raising capital. I
love it. Well, thanks for keeping us safe. Thanks for keeping us safe.
I will say this though, what the tool does is you don't have to code anything. You don't have to program anything. Once you set it up, it syncs up with LinkedIn. It goes through your LinkedIn profile. And you're right. When someone responds, the automation stops. So there's no risk of, oh, now I'm having a real conversation. All of a sudden they get an automated message. It just automatically stops. Okay. So that's where the tool really comes in. And you're right. It's about getting people to go beyond LinkedIn, to build the actual relationship, get them on your investor list. And sometimes the mistake I see a lot of, syndicators and aspiring syndicators make, they say, okay, this is great. Whenever I have a deal, I'm going to start doing this. You want to build that list of investors well before you need it, because when you're doing your next raise, you do not want to be scrambling to raise capital, right? You want to be the person who already has investors that you built relationships with, but you can say, okay, this is what the deal looks like. Let's see if this is a fit for you, rather than trying to do 5 things at once, right? And the other question that I get asked a lot, there's a few that I want to make sure that we cover here. The next one is, how do I make sure this is legal, right? The SEC says you can't just solicit for a deal depending on what kind of raise you're doing. So, what's the approach on that? And I'll say this as well. I'm not an SEC attorney. Don't play one on TV. However, after working with a lot of people, and some people who have been raising literally tens of millions of dollars of capital, using the internet and using social media, the way this approach works to be SEC compliant is you're building the relationship on LinkedIn, you're doing an introductory meeting, and then only then, once that person has had an introductory meeting with you, once they've joined your investor club or investor list, only then are we talking about potentially soliciting money for a specific deal and them writing you a check. Okay. Now, if you're doing a 506c, it may be a little different sometimes, but in most cases, you want to get that person on your list. We're not talking about saying, hey, I'm about to buy this apartment complex here. We don't know each other, but you want to invest $250,000. That would be foolish, and that's how you get in trouble with the SEC. So
it won't work. It won't work in person either. So it's not an in-person thing, nor a LinkedIn thing. You got to know, like, and trust somebody before somebody puts at least $50K in your pocket. So anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. And then the other question, because I know some people are, still in their W-2 jobs, or still transitioning or wanting to transition and doing syndications full time, right? Or in the power of just, transition. And a question is, well, if I'm still, doing this other job or other business, can I still use this, right? How can I still make my profile relevant? And, you know, it depends on, you know, how much leeway you have with your current employer. Some employers won't really care at all if you just list the other business under your experience, okay? Some will. If they do, you can still use this to find investors, because a lot of the magic's going to happen in the direct messaging, okay? So don't let that scare you. And worst case, you can make another profile. I usually don't recommend it. But you can also leverage. And the other thing is, people sometimes say, well, I'm just getting started in syndications. What do I say to get people to trust me? I haven't even done a deal yet. And what you can do, let's say you're coming from a tech background, right? You can leverage your years of experience in tech and position it as something that gives a unique perspective into real estate, for example. You can leverage the team of advisors you have, right? You can leverage your education and use all of that for your positioning on your profile. So I want to address those couple of questions because there's some major ones that I hear pretty frequently.
Yeah, the magic is direct messages. If you have your profile set up correctly and you're putting out content, this is, you know, probably without a W-2 job, but if you're doing that, you'll actually have people reach out to you that resonate with you, but it's at someone else's pace or the pace in which you put out content. If you want to go reach out to 1,000 more people and try to get, you know, 3, 4, 5%, whatever the percentage of those targeted messages, then you're going to control the pace, you control the flow, which is, you know, part of that automation part. So I will let me ask you one more thing too on the automation side. I know you don't want to mention the tools, and that's okay, but essentially it's like I'm buying some software or buying some tool that goes and plugs in with what I'm doing, and it automatically shuffles all of the messages out there. And then I have another, you know, kind of, whether it's my navigator or my dashboard, whatever, I'm responding to the people that said, "Oh yeah, I accepted your handshake," and now I'm responding like a normal person back and forth. That's accurate?
Exactly.
Okay, and your training program helps people through this whole process, correct?
A to Z of everything from how to build those targeted lists to what to say on your profile. And I mean, when we even have templates and different examples that they can use as well, to how to set up their messaging flow in their LinkedIn Messenger funnel, to how to get plugged in and set up on the automation, to how to test and make sure that you're getting results, and how to optimize, make sure your messaging is working, to how to transition those relationships beyond LinkedIn and really scale it up. And even we cover delegating this too, because that you might find that 20 or so minutes a day of responding to the people who are actually interested, you might find that you can delegate that. And there's a very specific way to delegate that to an assistant or a virtual assistant too, if you find yourself super busy. So between the automation and the delegation, you can be a true entrepreneur and take yourself out of the day-to-day of managing any of this. And all you're having to do is have the conversations with investors or potential investors who are actually interested in finding out more and who are the right people.
Yeah. I've had more than a few people tell me, "Oh, you know, your LinkedIn background looks really nice." I just put like my website, my contact information, and then when you click in my profile, it is no longer my resume, which I had my resume essentially up until last year, up until I heard your talk with Whitney Sewell. And I followed a few of your videos, and you were like, I guess, interviewing or highlighting other people's profiles. And that's how I ended up changing mine. I go, man, I've got all this. My content is like my own messaging. I need to remove all the other stuff and put my message out there. And this is who I am. This is what I'm about. And my profile, and, you know, the content part of it was I was already pushing content. I just didn't have, you know, when somebody had a land, when they would come back to my page. Anyways, I think I've optimized it a little bit. So thank you for your help, my friend. Where can our listeners and people that are interested in learning more, what you do, getting your education, coaching, all that good stuff, where do I reach out?
Yeah, it's a couple of ways. You can always find me on LinkedIn, Yakov Smart. Send me a connection request. Let me know you heard me on this podcast. We'll gladly accept you into the LinkedIn network. Second way, though, for people who want to go deeper on this, there's a free online training, and we have these once in a while, and I'm sure, Abel, in the show notes, we can give people a link, but there's a free online training on how to raise more capital and find high net worth investors using LinkedIn. That's a webinar people can access to for free. It'll give people a good overview, some more examples, some more case studies as well to build upon what we talked about today. And then people can go from there beyond the webinar if they want to learn more.
What I will put the links in the show notes, but if you could just, what is it? So anybody listening, where do I go?
I believe it's linkedleads.us/RC webinar.
Okay. We'll definitely link anyways, but I just want to at least have it documented here. But yeah, man, that sounds awesome. I really appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate, you sharing some of the insight, and thank you for helping us. Really appreciate it, my friend.
You bet. Appreciate you for having me.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanted to share? I didn't ask about it. You want to provide some exposure for anything, in general that you were like, man, I wanted to share this, and Abel didn't ask?
No, I think we gave people a good overview in the time that we had. I think we hit on a lot of the high points to kind of get people's wheels spinning and to give them those first steps. So yeah, I think it came out really good, actually.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, we appreciate it. And I thank you very much just for your time, your effort, and energy. Thanks for taking a few minutes to give back to our audience, and a lot of blessings to you, my friend.
You as well.
All right. Talk to you soon. And this is Abel Pacheco again, the host of Five Talents Podcast, where we talk commercial real estate. So if you heard something today that you enjoyed, please leave us ratings. Well, actually, I'd like you to subscribe, which helps our ratings. Then leave a written review, and a 5-star rating would be amazing. And then go reach out to Yakov if you heard something that was valuable and you want to learn more about him and his world. So thank you very much, and see you on the next show. Bye, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Five Talents Podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the Five Talents Podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the Five Talents Podcast.